Welcome back to Bible Time. Again, English Standard Version. We are in Genesis. We're going to do chapter 17 and 18 today. So 17 starts with Abraham and the covenant of circumcision. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and be blameless, that I may make my covenant between me and you, and may multiply you greatly. Then Abram fell on his face, and God said to him, Behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be the father of a multitude of nations. No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make you into nations, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your offspring after you throughout their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and to your offspring after you. And I will give to you and to your offspring after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said to Abraham, As for you, you shall keep my covenant, you and your offspring after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant, which you shall keep between me and you and your offspring after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised. I hope he explains what circumcision actually is. Let's find out. You shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. Bingo, he does. Continue. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male throughout your generations, whether born in your house or bought with your money. Apparently God's got a stutter, in my book anyway. And that's why he liked Moses. Moses had a stutter. I digress. I just interrupted God's speech. That's the beginning of that. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male throughout your generations, whether born in your house or bought with your money from any foreigner who is not of your offspring. Both he who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money shall surely be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh, an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. And God said to Abraham, As for Sarah, your wife, you shall not call her Sarai. So it was Sarai. Okay, if you watched previous versions of this, I debated whether her name was Sarai or Sarah. It was Sarai. And the last one I did, forgive me, I kept calling her Sarah. Oh, God willing, I have so much to learn about the Bible. Okay, let's keep going. And God said to Abraham, As for Sarai, your wife, you shall call her name Sarai, not Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her. Moreover, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall become nations. Kings of people shall come from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said to himself, Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. God said, No, but Sarah your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful and multiply him greatly. He shall father 12 princes, and I will make him into a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this time next year. When he had finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. Then Abraham took Ishmael, his son, and all those born in his house, or bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house. This sounds painful already. I'm not even there. And he circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very day, as God had said to him. Let's just take a moment. They didn't have surgical procedures like we do nowadays. I don't think they had things that numbed the pain. I'm not a guy. But if it was in my private zone, I could imagine the pain. Men, I'm sorry. That sounds horrible. But let's keep going. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised. Oh, in the flesh of his foreskin. I'd pass out. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That very day, Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised. And all the men of his house, those born in the house and those bought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. And the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the earth, and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said. Okay, let me just move the book. I couldn't see it in the right light. So where was I here? So they said, do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, Quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man, who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, Where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, She's in the tent. The Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife shall have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old to our standards. They lived thousands of years back then. I think they just counted time differently than we did, in all honesty. Advanced in years, the way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. I'm assuming she wasn't having her period. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, After I am worn out and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure? Yeah, I think that every day, Sarah, don't worry. Yeah. Start having natural periods at 45. I get it. Poor Sarah. Poor me sometimes. The Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh and say, Shall I indeed bear a child, now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? And at the appointed time I will return to you, about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, No, but you did laugh. Then the men came out from there, and they looked down toward Sodom, and Abraham went with him to set them on their way. The Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have chosen him, that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has promised him. Then the Lord said, Because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grave, I will go down to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me, and if not, I will know. Oh boy, that's not going to be pretty sight. It is not going to be good. God comes knocking on your door, you better have clean sheets. Okay? Yeah. We all know what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. If you don't, you listen. Keep listening. So the men turned from there and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood before the Lord. Then Abraham drew near and said, "Will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you then sweep away the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked, so that the righteous fare as the wicked. Far be that from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just?" And the Lord said, "If I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Abraham answered and said, "Behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord, I, who am but dust and ashes. Suppose 5 of the 50 righteous are lacking. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? And he said, "I will not destroy it if I find 45 there." Again he spoke to him and said, "Suppose 40 are found there." He answered, "For the sake of 40, I will not do it." Then he said, "Oh, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Suppose 30 are found there." He answered, "I will not do it if I find 30 there." He said, Abraham's pushing his luck here a little bit, I think. "Behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 are found there." He answered, "For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it." Then he said, "Oh, let not the Lord be angry. I will speak again." Zip it, Abraham. Zip it. Right. "But this once. Suppose 10 are found there." He answered, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." And the Lord went his way when he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Wow. So there was God going, "Abraham, I won't do it." He's pretty much sure there's not even going to be 10 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah. Not even 10. A handful. 10 people. Causes me to think, and when I read the Bible, I do like to do this, so tell me your thoughts as well. How many righteous people do you think God would find in our world right now? Why should he not destroy the whole thing? Are we not an entire world of Sodom and Gomorrah? I guess we're going to find out more about Sodom and Gomorrah as we go forward to see if that is a fair judgment and not the judge. I have a feeling if he was to come back, he's not going to be happy with what he sees in the world we've created out of all the beauty and splendor that he gave us. We'll find out. But as we learned today, don't laugh at him, because I'll give you a little hint. Sarah does have a baby in her 90s. And, yeah, she probably shouldn't have laughed. Like I said, I can do anything. You think age stops you. Not if God is helping you. If God is there, there is no boundary. There is no limits. He will let it be done. And it will be done good, as seen in his eyes. So, what I've kind of learned today is how strong God is, and his will, and that our faith can reside in that. We've seen this in the past, that God is there for us. But he's also stern like a father. Like a father who has to lay out punishments, who has to yell at you, who has to spank you sometimes, who has to give you punishment. He's stern like a father. And we as mere humans can't even understand his magnificence. And sometimes he has to explain it to us like we're real little idiots. And we kind of are. So it teaches you a little, to be a little humble. You know, poor Abraham, he just kept pushing that like, oh gosh, God's going to set me on fire if I speak one more word. I'm going to keep going. And why Abraham had such a heart to save the people. If there were good people there, he didn't want them hurt. And so he fought and fought to try to save the good. And we're going to find out what happens to those people when you join me next time. Okay, love you. Bye.